Welcome to the Channel Surfers, where we help channel executives and channel managers do their jobs better by giving them advice from the field that 30 plus years of experience have earned us. I'm John McCabe. I'm the co-host, and I'm joined as always by my good friend Jeff Lennon and fellow co-host. How you doing, Jeff?
I'm doing great, John. How are you, man?
I'm doing great. It's the first day of the Masters.
Ooh.
It's a beautiful spring day in the Carolinas, and it's my favorite time of year. I love the Masters. It's one of the things to watch and talk about and go to if I can.
Awesome.
So that's why I'm wearing my Masters.
I saw the hat.
honor.
I got it, man. That's awesome. And that's kind of a good transition, right? Because we have, I guess you would call someone of a master of security, AI master. So I'll let you kind of do the intro. You've known David a lot.
Yeah. And our guest is a good friend of mine. We worked together a couple times, but we spent a lot of time talking about how the channel's evolving, ecosystems, co-sell marketplaces, you name it. There's really another layer to that. And AI isn't just changing companies, it's changing the people inside of them. And our guest today, David Levine, is someone who knows a lot about AI and how companies are changing, but he also has a lot of experience as a technical with my channel partners from a technical expertise standpoint, and he's kind of a jack of all trades. He does a lot of things, but he also wrote a really good book, and we're going to talk about that. Welcome to the show, David. We're really happy to have you.
Thanks. My pleasure. Happy to be here. If I'd known I was a master, I would have worn my green jacket. I can go grab it quickly.
Right? Well, you're not a master of props, just for the record.
That would have been over the top guest behavior, but we would have loved it.
You're definitely a master of cyber, and you're definitely a master of technical sales. And soon, I have not had the chance to purvey the book other than just a quick summary, but apparently becoming the master of AI. So kudos.
Yeah, well, as AI, as you know, right, is starting to really become relevant, and everybody's looking at AI and how they're going to use AI. I thought it would be a good segue into AI and kind of talk about how AI is affecting people, how it's working in the job market, and things like that. As John mentioned,
Perfect.
I've been doing this for a while. We've worked at a couple of companies. I've been an SE, I've been an executive, and really helped the channel with training and enablement. So I figured this was just a good segue to write so that people would have an understanding of what's going on with AI and how it affects them.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Perfect.
So when we were kind of talking about doing this, and like I said, you've done a lot with cybersecurity, and you actually had a first book, The Digital Seas, Navigating the Digital Seas, or so I'm getting the whole boat analogy. But for our audience, I want to make sure that we touch on, it's like we're going to try to cover two main things here, right? We want to talk a little bit about how your approach, where you've come from, what you're seeing with the channel shift in the ecosystem. And then we can kind of transition that into what is that AI wave doing to that transition? Because it's more than just speeding it up. It is changing it. So I just want to kind of set the stage of like how our conversation should flow today. But so with that, I'll just kind of lead. So how did you even get into technology in the channel?
Well, when I got into technology in the channel, it was an enablement, right? Obviously, the channel is one of the most important ways for the end customer to get what manufacturers are manufacturing, what things that are important to them. And helping the channel understand the technology that I was working with enables them to talk to their end users and really have them use the products and have the technology that's important to them so that they, from a business value perspective, know what the market has available to them. So since I'm not directly dealing with the end customers and the channel is, enabling the channel, giving them as much technical information that they have about products helps everybody along the way. And that's really how I was involved in the channel.
Yeah. And I could vouch, Jeff, when we worked together, David wasn't necessarily assigned to channel, but he was always very like open and willing to help. And we did a bunch of partner events together, and he was great, and he was able to really help partners understand the technology. So I could vouch he's just been amazing to work with.
Thanks, John, and I appreciate it. And I try to, Jeff, just go a little bit above.
And by the way, you can mail checks too. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Oh, the check's already in the mail. But if I can
I'll be waiting for it.
Take that technology and the tough part about that and introduce it as a business value, then it helps everybody understand what that technology does, because the technology by itself is just technology.
Amen. 100%. So when you see that, and again, just the transition. So when you first started and you started working in, as John said, kind of leaning in, right, to the channel piece, because it's where things happen. Talk to me. What are your thoughts? I mean, what have you seen with the changes of the linear channel and how it's moving to this ecosystem motion? Because you're also doing some stuff with cybersecurity with ransom stop, but and I know you're kind of seeing it. But what are you seeing today, and how do you see that transition, and what are you doing effectively to work with it? So you're not going up against, you're not fighting the waves, you're going with them, so to speak.
Yeah, again, as you know, everybody is looking to do more with less nowadays. Is finding that trusted partner that can help you navigate, right? My digital wave, but you can actually navigate and have those conversations about where you are right now and meeting the customer where they are, and then being able to take them on the journey of where they want to go, right? And it's a crowded space,
Hmm.
but I find that the people in the channel who have that technical expertise, for instance, in cyber, are being able to use what they've learned and the technology to help a customer get where they are. For instance, yes, ransom stop, for instance, is something that ransomware everybody's worried about. But the new perimeter, for instance, is now identity, as everybody's going away to the cloud. So being aware of what's happening in identity, and not only within, I'll say, your business, but as a whole, and trying to holistically understand where identity is going and why that is the new edge, is important, right? So I think when you're dealing with the channel and you're working with your customers, it really is, as I said, more about the technology, but understanding what that technology does holistically and not just how it affects you, for instance, or this.
Yeah. So Dave, like you've been more vendor side, not channel
Mhm.
resale side. What do you see like from a reseller standpoint, just being on that vendor side? What are they like really leaning in on? Not just AI. I know that's a big thing, but what is the real product that they're leaning in most? We know endpoint, we know SIM, we know SOAR, we know
Right.
all that. But there's got, I think you said identity. I agree with that. But what do you think is really the big lean in for them right now?
So I think the big lean in, especially as we were talking about identity, is being able to see the communications, right? John, you and I work for a company, and it really was looking at the communications and seeing what was
Yeah,
happening
yeah,
within those communications. And I think as we move towards AI and people allowing AI to do jobs, it's the permissions that you give AI the same way you would give permissions to your employees, and
Exactly.
being able to understand the
yeah.
conversations that are happening between AI agents. That right now is a black box, and I don't think anybody really understands it. So my concern is, as we move forward in this, is that the humans who are supposed to be overseeing what's going on with AI really need to oversee it. Don't be too
Do,
permissive with permissions. Don't just click yes, go ahead and do this, but really know what's going on. And if you do that, I think AI is a big help. If you don't, I think AI is going to hurt you or be a hindrance.
Yeah.
do, do you run into any AI SOC automation tools that because they're popping up everywhere? And I want to lead into your book, all right? But I just want to talk about AI SOC automation. I see it as a gap filler, not necessarily a people replacement
Right.
tool, because in the SOC, when you're talking managed services, it's hard to fill seats and keep seats filled, right? There's a high turnover, and AI SOC automation can help fill the seats that need temporarily. Or if you budget for full headcount, you actually save money, and you could utilize that extra money for other tools or to enhance the AI SOC automation, right? So have you seen that? Have you run into any of those kind of tools?
There are, and AI SOC animation is something that, figure you have a couple of layers in the SOC, right? You have tier one, tier two, tier three. Tier one is basically looking at the alerts themselves, seeing what's going in and making a determination whether that needs to be elevated to someone else, right?
Mm.
And then taking action on it. I think that's where AI comes in. AI is very good at reading things, and it knows what information is there and can go through and process that very quickly. And that's where AI is now. As fast as we're making these leaps and bounds. Every day you see something else coming out about AI and its new technologies and what it can do. At the end of the day, it can't think like a human. It really is only operating with the data.
Right.
And that's the
Yeah.
difference. So when we say that you need that head count, I can now move my tier one to tier two and have them do the work that's important instead of just looking at logs and determining what's important and what's
Yeah.
not. And the last point of that, anybody who's been in cyber for a long time knows that the amount of alerts that you get, to your point, why people leave, is there's alert fatigue. You can only probably look about 8 to 10% of all the alerts in a huge SOC. So imagine how AI can actually help you with that and see all of the logs and bubble up what's important.
Interesting.
That's a big part of those tools. That's a big part. Jeff and I have been learning a lot about them. And they can eliminate noise and process, find the problem and deal with it right away.
Yep.
But they also have those, that ability to have someone at the tier one level who can AI response. They'll train it to respond properly, right? So, but I was just curious because you're very heavy into cybersecurity with the companies that you work for. If you've seen anything like that out there.
There are, and there are also, for instance, tabletop exercises, right? So you don't only want to be involved in the SOC. If you have a tabletop exercise, and a lot of them now are also being automated, you now know your game plan and know what you're going to do if something happens. Nobody shows up at the Masters and just plays and wins, right? It's the practice. It's knowing what's going to happen. What do you do when your lie is this way? And that's what those tabletop exercises will do. So the day that something happens, you're a master at that game. You're not starting from scratch, and it's not just mass confusion.
Amen.
You're back in the 70s. There was a guy in the UK that entered the Open, and he had no handicap, and he was awful. And he kept. There's a movie about it. He kept entering, and he's awful every year, and he kept disguising himself. But you can actually enter a tournament with no experience. So, not the greatest analogy, but I'm just saying.
You can also be in the SOC with no experience. I'm not sure it's going to work out well.
That's true. Well, to your point, I'll just say, look, using a Masters reference, right? Amen to what you just said, and not just amen corner, because I know John's a big fan. We all know John's a big fan of the Masters.
Boom, boom.
But no, I wanted to come back because I wanted to tie off on something you said before we kind of went down this other path with the agentic SOC kind of AI. And that is, what you were talking about with the products and the technologies and where AI is taking it. And then you look at where the new perimeter is for security, right? And its identity. And it's really, in a world of AI right now, where I think the big differentiator is trust is becoming the biggest differentiator for AI and for companies because you have to trust it, right? I'm a big guardrail. You got to have guardrails when you're doing so, the governance, the guardrails, and the insurance. What you're doing is meaningful. And, we have our 3 pillars of people, the people, permissions, and privacy, which is the data. Who's accessing it? How's it accessing it? So I just, when you said that was kind of my takeaway, which is, I think a good transition to talk a little bit about where you're going with the book you have, because if you can, in this world that we're moving to with AI, it is about trust. And I believe trust is the number one thing that has to take place when you're selling anyway, but you're going to need that in your product. And that has to be your differentiator. So how do you get people to trust that? So that is my lead in to talk to me about the book and what really spurred you to want to write this book about AI?
That's a great question, and thanks. So as we've been talking about, right, if you use AI correctly and the way it's made today, is AI will handle the routine. Humans need to handle the context and the judgment, right? And that's really where I started from. And, I'm sure a lot of people don't know this, but a funny story is I'm just going to look because I have it here, from 1935 to 1970s, the people who worked at NASA Langley were actually called computers, right? And it's funny. So when IBM came out with computers, they were just taking a product and making it what people were, right? So this AI transformation is kind of the same as that. Now, the people who were computers, the human computers, actually started overseeing the computers. They were the data entry people, right? The same transition happened with ATMs. Every teller said they were going to lose their job, right? We've all been in banks. There are still tellers there. So it really made me think about what's going on with AI. It's the same thing. It's probably a little more powerful,
Huh.
but I wanted to write a book where is AI really taking your job, right? And is it just FUD? Is it just headlines? Or what's really going on? And if it is taking your job, what can you do to kind of protect yourself from that happening?
Hmm.
And Dave, just to kind of like interject here, like Jeff and I have done a show on like the state of the work uh, force right now, and like getting a job, and there's a lot of AI involved in applying for a job, and there's a lot of resume harvesting. From where you're writing this book, we've seen, was it Oracle layoff
Ooh.
30,000? Yeah, very recently. I think Amazon did, and like some big companies. What's that one that the guy who invented Twitter, his company, Bitly or something like that? He just laid off 4,000 people. We hear that a lot. We hear like, "Hey, AI is coming to take my job. I'm afraid of it." I take the position like, don't be afraid of it. Adopt it, absorb it, understand it. You're still going to be. But AI is a super powerful tool to help you do your job better. So help us understand that in the context of what you wrote in the book.
Yeah, so I actually talk about that in the book. And, a lot of companies, they are expect this dramatic productivity gain from using AI. But what we're actually seeing is you're only getting a gain of about 12 to 15%.
Hmm.
So
Mm.
what AI really does, it allows people to do their jobs more efficiently, right? The jobs shouldn't really disappear.
Exactly.
When you're seeing those layoffs, it's really called AI washing. And I talk about that as
Mm.
well, right? So it's really the practice of using AI as a public justification for the decisions that those decisions were already being made. It probably would have been a riff. They probably would have done cost cutting or something else, but it's easy now to
Deadwood,
say, hey,
Deadwood,
guess what?
Deadwood. Yeah, yeah,
AI is
yeah.
is the reason that we're laying people off.
But those are some significant numbers, like like something like 30 or 40,000 from Oracle. I think it was Oracle. But that's a big number, and I can't believe AI would replace that many positions, that many jobs. I think it can enhance what they do, but there's still a human component that needs to be in place for doing some of those jobs. Customer service, sales. You got to be in front of people to do things like that. I even think technical, like you can't really rely on an AI to be the technical experts all the time, because they are not thinking like you would think, Dave, when you were developing the AI platform at the company that we work with. You were thinking about what works best for the customer. This component, the dashboard needs to look like this.
Right.
AI can do it. You got to prompt it, but you need the humans to be able to prompt it, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that's where you're seeing this shift, right? So AI doesn't know what a cat is, right? AI knows what a cat is because somebody showed it 50 million pictures of a cat and said, this is what a cat is. So when it sees a cat, it can determine whether it's a dog or a cat. But it doesn't know how a cat makes a human feel. It doesn't know how happy or unhappy it makes a human. It doesn't understand what playing with the laser or playing with the ball actually is. And that's the part that AI can't do. So AI is good for handling routine templates, right? Basic tasks. And the part of your job that requires judgment, I'm sorry, prioritizing, deciding, explaining, that is not an AI job. That is a human
Yeah.
job.
True.
And it
No,
has
I
to be
agree.
for the humans to retain that part and have the context and the trust and accountability. And then AI can do the other things.
See,
Mm-hmm. Totally agree with that.
yeah, absolutely. You made me laugh because you said lasers, but I wasn't going to the Austin Powers joke. I want to keep us on track here. John will slap me, but when I think about what John, the whole thing with Oracle and what you just kind of said, I think that the challenge is, look, the actual roles that take place in a company aren't disappearing. They are getting consolidated, right? But the tasks that they were doing are, because the AI is able to do those tasks. So the job is now becoming more strategic and less manual, right?
Yeah.
So my question is, what do you see as the biggest misconceptions that people have right now around AI and how it impacts their job?
So I think, the misconception is AI is coming for my job, right? AI is going
Knew
to
it.
do everything I can.
Knew it.
Now, in technology, is AI coming for your job faster than it's going to be coming for your job if you're in a service industry, right? Again, if I'm processing events or doing something that a machine can read lines of code and decipher, it can do it a lot faster, right? Does it make the right decisions all the time? No, but it can get me 80% of where I need to
Mm,
get.
yeah.
So, I've tried vibe coding and I've done all that stuff. I spend a lot of time yelling at the AI that that's not what I asked it to do, right? So you still
That's so
need to
frustrating.
know what you want it to do, but it gets you there faster. It's like having a horse and buggy and a car. They're going to get me to the same place. The
Yeah.
car is going to get me there faster. I still have to drive. I still
Yeah.
have to know where I'm going and everything else. And
Right.
that's
So, Dave, funny story. Jeff and I have this consulting business where we help small cybersecurity companies build a channel and go to market, right? And our new client was at RSA, and they met with a company that I'm friendly with the executives there, and I got them a meeting, and there's some alliance piece that could be found there. Their chief technology officer, chief product officer in the meeting said, because of what they're doing, he goes, Claude's just going to replace you guys in a year. And we're like, what? We actually did some research. What they do, an AI tool like Claude might come close, but it couldn't replace what they're doing. So I think people have that misconception that you're talking about, even in that regard, right? Like trying to figure out, like, will these security tools be in place? Because you could just do it with Claude. I think AI adds value and enhancement to a security tool. It's not the whole thing. It can't create itself. It can't create a security tool by itself, right? You got to prompt it. So my that was just a story I thought was relevant and funny. Like, I don't think you can replace a whole technology with a Claude or Perplexity or any of these tools.
You're not going to, right? And jobs are fragile, right? So I was talking to someone the other day, and they were in a call center, right? They hate their job. They complain about their job all the time. And I go, well, don't worry about it. AI is coming for your job. And they were upset. So those are these jobs are coming after. They hate their job. They hate going to work. AI is going to definitely come for that job. And yet they're still upset. So, the point is that yes, jobs are fragile, right? But humans can have compound skills, right? So I always say focus on the capabilities that remain valuable across different roles, right? I
Totally agree.
make yourself unique. Ask yourself, what decisions do I have to make so people are going to rely on me, right? And that's what I talk about in the book is what can you do even though AI is out there to make yourself invaluable. So when somebody says, to your point, John, initially, these roles are saying no AI and everything else,
Yeah.
you want to have an understanding of AI. You want to know where it's going to work, where it's going to add value and not. Know what skills and judgment it makes and make yourself someone who can help AI do that and make yourself invaluable rather than just, you know, going with the flow or just letting AI replace you.
Yeah. So a couple of things in your book. There's like 4 points you've highlighted: relationship building, trust creation, strategic thinking, and problem solving, which I think AI can do, but I think humans can do a couple of things better. But talk about those points and how it relates to your book, because I think that's something that's very interesting in this whole concept.
So, I mean, I won't go over each point directly, but basically, it's you want to shift from, job security to skill security, right? You want to make sure that you have the skills that are going to take you forward. As I mentioned before, you want to identify your unique value, right? And you want to be able to learn the tools. So, if we go back to the computer example, right, of the 1970s, the people who ended up keeping their jobs or progressing at their job were the people who can now teach these computers how to do data entry, teach these computers their job and manage them, have that skill where now they're actually adding value to the company by teaching something else to do the mundane, to do the routine, and then stay engaged, stay calm. You can't confuse urgency with importance, right? And you want to come from a decision of not fear, but facts. So, I say stay curious, invest in your relationships at work, learn other skills, and just make sure that you're on top of your game and then you probably have less to worry about than others.
Wow. That's awesome, man. You know, it's interesting because I think where there's so much hype around AI, and you've got people like, "Oh, you got to learn AI. You got to go out there and learn it." And I'm guilty. I mean, to your point, the vibe coding, like I've gone down some rabbit holes. I've gone into some stuff. I've got subscriptions that I can't, like, just because, oh, this is going to do this and it's going to save the world, and you're like, yeah. And then you're like, okay, I just spent 6 hours and I probably could have just built the damn presentation myself. But when I start looking at that, again, what you just shared and kind of taking that, and John, I think John's a big believer in this as well, is it's, be more tactical in your approach. You're not going to go out and learn AI. You're not building an LLM. You're not building your language model, but there are tools that will enhance your job. They'll enhance your ability to drive your workflow. And I think that's kind of what you were saying is lean into where you can be better at using it. You're not going to go build a car. You're going to learn how to drive a car, and you're going to be one of the best at driving it. That's what's going to help take you to that next level. And where I also see AI being helpful is it does kind of learn, it picks up on things, but you have to constantly get it to be honest, right? But it can help you analyze, as I said this in the past, large quantities of data to make better decisions, because it helps you get relevance around information more rapidly to kind of consolidate it down. So, that being said, where are you seeing the best practical approach for how people can start to lean in and do this, right? Because you obviously the book is talking about, I'm looking at the book over here, but navigating the AI wave. What are you seeing from a navigation of the wave, right? Because we're channel surfers, so we want to ride that wave. So how would you approach that? What are 2 or 3 things that you would recommend?
Yeah, so in the book, I talk about the first thing. As you mentioned before, it's a nautical theme. I love boating, right? You're channel surfers. So it is, look at what's in front of you, right? Look at the current. If I was in my boat before I leave the dock, I'm going to look at the tides and the current and the weather. And I'm going to take all of those factors and determine, am I going to leave? Am I not going to leave? Is today a good day or not a good day, right? Which direction am I going to go? And I think taking that approach to everyday life, whether it's work or just everyday life, is do the same thing.
Bingo.
AI is like an opinion. Everybody
Mhm.
has one, right? So I can ask
Mhm.
John his opinion on what I should do to help the channel or sell. I could ask you, Jeff, what should I do from a consulting perspective? You know what? Chances are you're going to be close, but you're going to have different opinions, right? Who's right, who's wrong? I don't know. And it's the same thing with
Mhm.
AI. Ask it the questions, learn what it's doing. You're not going to know how to build an AI LLM, right? You're just not going to build that. But understanding what it can do and what it can't do and where to use it, prompting is one of those things, right? Learning to know the best prompts or where to use one over the other, I think would be my advice. And I just want to tell you a story,
Mhm.
to that. So I was using, I won't say which one, but I was using AI today, and I asked it a question, and it came back with a response. I said, I don't understand what you're saying. It actually came back and said, nope, you're right. I BS'd you. I should have given you the direct answer. So you just
Oh
don't
my God.
know what AI is going to do. So you can't trust it yet. And to use it as the authority over human judgment is something that I just don't think people should do. And I just don't think we're there.
Mhm.
Nah, 100%
It's
agree.
funny. Well, they talk about like what is it? What's the term they use? That's AI can like mask real answers. What do they call it?
Oh,
Ghosting or something like that?
it's
Hallucinate.
hallucination.
Oh, hallucination. That's right there. We just got a living example. So I love your analogy, how you relate boating to navigating AI. Very, very good analogy because, boating is not for the faint of heart. You got to know what you're doing or else you could crash and die, right? Or you could sink your ship. So what would you tell someone who's sitting here listening and still really doesn't know if AI is the right thing, and they're feeling behind or unsure? Like, what kind of advice would you give them to that person?
So I'll go both sides. I'll go for the companies and I'll go for the people. For on the personal side, it's just becoming familiar with it, right? And I
Mm,
hear a lot that people use AI like a Google search. My first thing would be
mm,
don't, right? Use Google for a Google search. It has AI built into it. But use AI for other things. Maybe build a spreadsheet, right? Ask it what it can do. Have it work on videos for you. But there's also the
mm,
other side of AI. I always use something like an AI checker. If somebody sends me a video of a dog playing with a ball, I'm going to send it to an AI checker, right? And make
Mm.
that it really is AI or not. So from a personal perspective, AI is becoming more scary because the bad actors are using it. So my suggestion would be validate everything from an AI
Mm.
perspective.
Yeah.
And then also on the other side, learn how AI works so you're better equipped. On the employer side, customer side is, you know, you're going to probably have a little bit of reduction in force, but you want to surround those AI agents with humans, right? You want to make sure that you have the humans who have the expertise to know what's going on, to understand how they work, to make sure that the communication is secure, but who is asking those questions has the ability to, the same way you use identity management with everything else, you want to be able to use it with AI. And I think right now we're still at the beginning stages of it where people are trusting AI too much and they don't have the insights to what's actually going on.
Mm.
Just came out with something today that they're not even going to release their latest version because they feel it's too powerful, right? It escaped from the sandbox. It did stuff that they didn't know it was going to do. So if the
Jeez.
manufacturers of AI are scared of AI and they don't understand what it does, I'd be concerned as a company using AI the same way. You don't know what it's going to do, and it's the humans that can make that determination of what it should be able to do.
Mm.
That's awesome. Thanks for scaring the
You know,
crap out of everybody. Sorry.
I have to admit, when we were at the last company we worked at, and we pivoted and we're throwing everything into AI to redevelop the product, I didn't know anything about AI, but I am much more involved, and I embrace it and I use it. I developed an AI chat bot application called PartnerBot.ai, and I used vibe coding to do it. I'm not a coder, so
Not
I was able,
about.
but no, not all. Jeff is very involved and very technical, and he digs deep into it. Whereas I'm using AI to help me get to from point A to point B, and not really look to the code. But when I think back to what you guys are doing and how you were building the platform and everything was AI based and how we were so excited about it, and I was thinking, I don't know about this AI, but I learned a lot, And actually, what you developed was pretty amazing. Too bad we didn't, get it out on the market in time. But besides the point. But yeah, it was very, very. It was amazing how you built it and how it just developed.
Maybe you needed more AI.
Maybe
I'm kidding. Okay.
To your
that was
point,
before
it, it accelerates what you want to do, right? No matter who you are or what you're trying to work on, AI can help you and can accelerate what you're trying to do. It's just a word of caution, right? Just be careful about what you do and how you use AI. To your point, Jeff, right? I don't have to know how it's built. I have a sports car. I don't care how they built the engine. I don't care how they put it in. I'll take it to a mechanic. But I want to know how to drive the car,
Yeah,
right? So,
absolutely.
yeah, to my point, right? It's the
That's a
same with
great
AI.
analogy
You
too.
don't have to learn how it's built, but you want to know how it handles. And I think that's
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
for sure. So we're kind of coming up at the top of the hour, Dave. Let's let you promote your books. Where can our listeners find them, and anything else that you have going on that you want to talk about?
Oh, I appreciate that. So you can find them on Amazon. It was AI, Navigating the AI Wave is the newest one. It's a short book. You can read that very quickly, maybe on an airplane on the way back. And Navigating the Digital Wave really talks about cybersecurity as an industry and the whole industry and how I compare it to boating, right? So they both have boating metaphors. I try to, in both books, use that navigation metaphor. So if you love boating, you're going to love it, but it makes more sense from being able to understand the concepts and where I'm going. So get on Amazon. But yeah, I have nothing, thankfully, to really promote. I just wanted to come on here. The
Yeah.
podcast is awesome. I know you've done many of them. We've worked together in the past, and I just wanted to hopefully get some information out there so people have a better or different understanding of AI, where it's being used, how they can protect themselves.
Very relevant for sure.
Yeah.
Very relevant. And we've talked about AI replacing jobs on a number of shows. We had a gentleman on by the name of Rick Sears who He does business, he does resume rewrites and also consulting for, job consulting, career consulting. And we talked about it, but he talked about AI from a resume standpoint, and these systems that you submit your resumes in, the AI scrapes them. And if they have certain keywords that were in the job description, they know you're fudging it, or there's a whole like just everything that you don't want to hear. And you got to be really careful. And he helps kind of figure out how to get through
He
that.
helps people navigate that.
He does. Maybe you guys could co-write a book together.
Maybe we can. I'll have to talk to him.
Yeah. But for our listeners, it's David Levine, and you can find his books on Amazon. And certainly, if you have any questions on how to navigate AI, I think it's a great way to start, because it'll help you kind of figure out what you need to do and strategize how to, go about, learning it and embracing and controlling it. It's not going to control you.
You got to use it. You got to use it, right? So just to tie off, actually close off. First of all, David, thank you, man. Really appreciate it. And for the record, I told John I didn't want you on, and then when he said you had 2 books, I'm like, okay, 2 books, then we can bring them on. Then we'll bring them on, because one book,
2 books.
Yeah, one book trick ponies, not into that. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody can write one book, right? But no, seriously, man, really appreciate you being on, and kind of quick takeaways, right? I mean, and I think you concur with this. At least my takeaway, and I am going to kind of read the book, but AI isn't going to it's not necessarily going to replace your job, but it is going to change the way that you do it. Number one, and the people who don't adapt and start leveraging it, because when you adapt, it's going to allow you to do things faster and not panic about being faster, but being actually moving at a better velocity. I think that's going to be helpful. But I think the strongest takeaway for me is the human element. The human skills are just as important as they always were, if not more so. And I think keeping it human is a true key to get, to moving to that next step. And then I'll say the last one, channel roles, and, people themselves that are using it, it's going to help you be more strategic in your execution. So there we go.
Well, David, thank you again for being on the show. If you write another book, let us know. We'll squeeze you in. 3 books is like, that's
I might have to write one now just for another opportunity to be on the show.
That's status, right? That you have. But no, we appreciate you taking the time today. For our listeners, if you want to reach out to us, we have a website, channelsurfers.com. Feel free to reach out to us in the contact us form, or you can email us, john@channelsurfers.com, jeff@channelsurfers.com. And we also have a LinkedIn page where we post every Tuesday the newest episode that's coming out. Jeff does a great job with the video editing, and he does a little snippet that we post on LinkedIn. So feel free to reach out to us. We're growing our audience, and we really appreciate everybody who takes time to listen and likes what we're talking about. Awesome. Until then, Jeff, thanks again for doing this. David, appreciate your time, and thank you again.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, David. Take care.
All right.